You've walked into this room before. You open the door to a meeting, and before a single word is spoken, you feel the tension. It's a rigid, defensive energy that seems to drop the temperature of the room the second you walk in. Contrast that with the opposite experience. You walk into an office, meet a leader, and your shoulders drop. You breathe a little easier. You feel entirely safe, almost instantly. In our previous session, we covered how to manage the internal mechanics of a conversation by quieting your own thoughts. But active listening hits a brick wall if the external emotional climate is entirely defensive. Exceptional communicators know this. They don't walk into a negotiation and hope for a good mood. They consciously engineer the climate of the room. This is the fourth pillar of the SAMVAD framework, vibe. It is the intentional projection of relational warmth to establish absolute psychological safety. Commanding a room's emotional tone is not some mystical, unteachable trait. It relies on a highly predictable biological switch, one that you can learn to control. To understand this, we must look at the biology of human interaction, specifically emotional contagion. When we observe another's emotions, specialized brain clusters called mirror neurons activate. They literally force our internal state to match the emotional state of the person in front of us. This mirroring process is entirely automatic. It happens constantly, well below the threshold of our conscious awareness. This means if you walk into a conversation projecting stress or defensive armor, your listener is biologically compelled to catch that stress. Their neurological shields will go up, even if your words are perfectly polite. The reverse is true. When you intentionally project warmth and composure, you trigger those exact mirror neurons to shut down the brain's threat detection systems. By consciously directing this contagion, you force the listener's brain out of a defensive posture. You naturally coax them into a state where collaborative, rational dialogue is actually possible. So how do we actively pull this trigger? What specific behavior reliably creates this warm synchronization? The single most effective catalyst for this process is vulnerability. Think about what happens when you share a deeply held belief or own up to an honest mistake. You expose yourself to another person's judgment. Paradoxically, making yourself open to that judgment signals to the listener that they are entirely safe with you. There is a strict rule here. True social gravity requires reciprocity. Dumping your emotions onto someone else just overwhelms them. It must be an exchange. Establish this rhythm by asking meaningful questions. When they give a real answer, meet them with equal emotional openness. This back and forth proves your mutual emotional availability. Over the course of a conversation, these small acts of warmth compound, building an unbreakable foundation of trust. The human brain incessantly divides the people it encounters into two strict categories, us and them. Mastering the vibe pillar allows you to bypass that division entirely, bringing us to a concept called the unity principle. When you successfully pair emotional contagion with reciprocal vulnerability, that biological boundary separating you from the listener begins to dissolve. In this synchronized state, you stop being you and I and become a we, and the we is simply the shared me. By acting as the architect of the room's emotional climate, you guarantee an environment where psychological defenses disappear entirely. Once that absolute safety is established, you finally have the grounding you need to speak your mind. In our next session, we'll move to the fifth pillar of the framework, assert, where you will learn to speak your absolute truth and set boundaries with quiet confidence.